The wedding nobody noticed her at. Natalie Ashford smoothed down the burgundy dress she had borrowed from a thrift store 3 days before the wedding. The fabric was soft but outdated, with a small repair along the left shoulder seam that she had carefully stitched herself. She sat alone at table 19, positioned near the kitchen doors where the catering staff rushed back and forth with trays of champagne and appetizers. The Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom sparkled with thousands of tiny lights, crystal centerpieces catching the glow and scattering it across white tablecloths that probably cost more than her monthly rent. 400 guests filled the enormous space, their laughter and conversation creating a symphony of celebration. But not one person had come to greet Natalie since she arrived 2 hours ago. She was used to this feeling, this peculiar sensation of being present yet completely absent. Like a ghost haunting her own life, able to observe but never truly participate. Her twin sister Victoria stood at the center of the room, radiant in an ivory gown that had been custom designed by a famous European fashion house. The dress featured delicate beadwork that caught every angle of light, making Victoria appear as if she were wrapped in stardust. Her blonde hair was styled in an elaborate updo, woven with fresh roses and tiny diamonds. She looked like royalty, and in their family, she might as well have been the golden child and the shadow. Natalie watched as their mother, Catherine Ashford, posed for photographs with Victoria, both women beaming with identical perfect smiles. Catherine wore an elegant silver gown that complemented her carefully maintained appearance. At 53, she could have passed for 40, thanks to regular spa treatments and the kind of self-care that money afforded. She looked past Natalie at least 5 times without acknowledgement, too focused on ensuring every detail of Victoria's special day was flawless. Their father, Jonathan Ashford, stood near the bar holding court with a group of business associates. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his designer suit fitting his tall frame without a single wrinkle. He laughed loudly at someone's joke, his hand gesturing with the confidence of a man who had never doubted his place in the world. Natalie remembered a time when he used to tell her stories before bed, when his eyes would light up as she showed him her childhood drawings. That version of her father had disappeared 15 years ago. The groom, Trevor Hastings, was the son of a real estate mogul. He stood beside Victoria with practiced charm, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. Natalie had met him only once during the 10-month engagement, a brief introduction at a family dinner where he had looked at her for exactly 3 seconds before turning his attention back to Victoria. He had asked if she was the help, an assumption that had stung even though she knew he meant no particular cruelty. She was simply that forgettable. When the music stopped, the ceremony was about to begin. A string quartet played soft classical music as guests found their assigned seats. Natalie remained where she was, hidden behind a large decorative pillar wrapped in white silk and cascading orchids. From this position, she could see the entire altar setup without being in anyone's line of sight. It was a spot she had unconsciously chosen, the same way she had spent her whole life finding corners and shadows to occupy. The wedding march began. Victoria appeared at the entrance on their father's arm, absolutely breathtaking. Every person in the room turned to watch her glide down the aisle. Cameras flashed. People whispered admiringly. Victoria had always possessed this quality, this magnetic pull that drew every eye and heart toward her. Natalie had accepted long ago that she and Victoria might share the same face, the same green eyes and high cheekbones, but they lived in completely different worlds. Trevor stood at the altar with his groomsmen, his expression one of barely contained excitement. The officiant began the traditional ceremony, speaking about love and commitment in that rehearsed way that made the words sound both meaningful and routine. Natalie let her mind drift to the small apartment she shared with 2 roommates, to the paintings she worked on late at night after her shifts at the downtown library ended, to the life she had built from scraps and determination. The voice that shattered everything. The officiant's voice filled the grand space. If anyone has reason why these 2 should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence settled over the room like a blanket. Nobody ever objected at weddings. This part was just tradition, a formality that everyone knew would pass without incident. I have a reason. The voice came from the back of the ballroom, deep and commanding. Every head turned in unison. A man stood near the entrance, tall and striking in a midnight blue suit that had clearly been tailored specifically for him. His dark brown hair was styled with effortless precision, and even from a distance, Natalie could see the intensity in his dark eyes. He radiated confidence and power, the kind that came not from inherited wealth but from building an empire with his own hands. Cameron Sterling. Even Natalie, who avoided social media and celebrity news, recognized him. The self-made billionaire who had revolutionized the tech industry with innovations in artificial intelligence and sustainable energy. He was only 34 but had already been featured on magazine covers, interviewed by major news networks, and honored by humanitarian organizations for his charitable work. Catherine gasped loudly. Jonathan stepped forward, his face reddening with anger and confusion. Victoria's bouquet trembled in her hands, white roses shaking like leaves in a storm. But Trevor's reaction was the most telling. All color drained from his face. His confident smile collapsed into something that looked like pure fear. The truth comes out. Cameron walked down the center aisle with measured steps, his shoes clicking against the marble floor in the sudden quiet. He pulled a thick folder from inside his jacket, holding it up for everyone to see. Trevor Hastings is not who he claims to be, Cameron announced, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the massive room. His real name is Trevor Gallagher. He has been married twice before, both marriages ending with fraud charges. He currently has warrants in 2 states for identity theft and embezzlement. The real estate empire he claims to be part of does not exist. His father is not a mogul but a convicted con artist currently serving time in a federal prison. The ballroom erupted. Shocked gasps and urgent whispers filled the air like a sudden storm. Victoria stumbled backward, her perfect composure shattering. Catherine rushed to her side while Jonathan snatched the folder from Cameron's hand, his face turning purple as he scanned the documents inside. Trevor tried to run. He actually turned and bolted toward a side exit, but 2 security guards Natalie had not noticed before blocked his path. His polished exterior cracked completely, revealing the desperate criminal underneath. "This is insane," Trevor shouted, his voice breaking with panic. "He is lying. Cameron Sterling is trying to destroy me because I outbid him on a property deal last year. This is revenge." Cameron remained completely calm, almost bored by Trevor's accusations. "Every document in that folder has been verified by federal investigators. The FBI has agents waiting in the lobby. You can discuss your innocence with them." Natalie sat frozen at her forgotten table, watching her sister's fairy tale wedding implode in real time. Part of her felt genuine sympathy for Victoria, who was now sobbing uncontrollably in their mother's arms. But another part of her, a small voice she tried to suppress, felt something else. Relief maybe. Or validation that even Victoria's perfect life could fall apart. Real police officers entered the ballroom. They handcuffed Trevor, reading him his rights as he protested loudly. Guests pulled out their phones, recording everything. The event would be all over social media within minutes. The Ashford family's humiliation would be public and complete. Through all the chaos, Cameron Sterling's eyes swept across the room until they landed directly on Natalie. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. Then, impossibly, he smiled. Not a triumphant or cruel smile, but something gentler. Something that seemed meant only for her. And in that moment, Natalie Ashford's invisible existence ended. Though she did not know it yet, everything was about to change. The exhibition that started everything. Natalie escaped to the hotel's rooftop terrace while chaos consumed the ballroom below. Her hands shook as she gripped the iron railing, the cool October air biting through her thin dress. The Chicago skyline stretched endlessly before her, millions of lights twinkling like earthbound stars. She could still hear muffled shouting from inside, could still picture Victoria's tear-streaked face and their father's rage-filled expression. She had discovered this terrace during the venue tour 6 months ago, when Victoria had dragged her along to offer opinions she would immediately dismiss. The space was technically off-limits to guests, accessible only through a service corridor near the kitchen. But Natalie had always been good at finding hidden places, quiet corners where she could breathe without being noticed. The view is better than I remembered. Natalie spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance. Cameron Sterling stood 10 feet away, his hands tucked casually into his pockets. Up close, he was even more striking than she had realized downstairs. His features were sharp and defined, his dark eyes holding an intelligence that seemed to see through every wall she had built around herself. But what caught her off guard was the softness in his expression, so different from the cold authority he had displayed while exposing Trevor. "How do you know my name?" The question came out more defensively than she intended. Cameron stepped closer, maintaining a respectful distance. "Natalie Ashford. Born 4 minutes before your twin sister Victoria. Graduated top of your class from Lincoln High School. Accepted into the prestigious Fashion Institute with a full scholarship. You were going to change the world of design." Natalie's heart pounded against her ribs. "You have been researching me?" "No." Cameron's voice was gentle but firm. "I have been remembering you. For 12 years. The memory she tried to forget. Natalie felt the ground shift beneath her feet. 12 years ago, she had been 22 years old, freshly graduated from design school and full of dreams that seemed within reach. She had worked for 2 years on a collection called Renaissance, 8 pieces that told a story about rebirth through hardship. Each garment was a wearable piece of art, combining traditional techniques with innovative materials she had discovered through endless experimentation. The Chicago Art Institute had given her a solo exhibition in their Emerging Artists Gallery. It was supposed to be the launching point of her career, the moment when all her sacrifice and dedication would finally pay off. She remembered setting up the display, her hands trembling with excitement and terror as she arranged each piece under perfect lighting. The opening night had drawn a modest crowd of industry professionals, art collectors, and fashion enthusiasts. "You wore a black dress you had made yourself," Cameron continued, his eyes distant with memory. "Simple cut, but the fabric had this subtle shimmer that caught the light when you moved. You gave a speech about how beauty could emerge from pain, how transformation required courage to shed old skin and grow something new. Your voice shook the entire time, but you never once looked away from the audience." Natalie pressed her back against the railing, needing its solid support. "I do not understand. There were maybe 70 people at that exhibition. I would have remembered you. I came late, stood in the back near the exit. I had attended because my assistant thought I needed more culture in my life." Cameron's smile was self-deprecating. "I was 26, had just sold my second startup for a fortune, and thought I understood success. Then I saw your work and realized I had no idea what true creation meant." The sale that changed her life. The exhibition had been a critical success but a financial disappointment. 3 pieces sold that night to small collectors for prices that barely covered her material costs. Natalie had tried to hide her devastation behind professional smiles and grateful thank yous. She remembered leaving the gallery alone, walking through cold February streets and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake choosing art over security. 2 days later, her phone rang. The gallery director, an older woman named Margaret Chen, sounded breathless with excitement. An anonymous buyer wanted to purchase the entire remaining collection for $250,000. The offer was firm, non-negotiable, and came with only one condition: complete anonymity. Natalie had been shocked, overwhelmed, suspicious, and ultimately desperate enough to accept. The money had seemed like a miracle, like the universe finally acknowledging her talent. She remembered crying in her tiny studio apartment, clutching the check and feeling like every struggle had been worth it. "That was you," Natalie whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. "You bought my collection. Cameron nodded slowly. Every piece. I have them displayed in my private gallery at home. They are the first things I see every morning. But why? Natalie's voice cracked. Why would you spend that kind of money on an unknown designer's work? Because your pieces made me feel something I had never felt before looking at art. They were not just beautiful garments. They were stories made tangible, emotions you could touch. The way you combined raw silk with recycled materials, traditional embroidery with industrial zippers, it showed someone who understood that true beauty comes from contrast and contradiction. When dreams became impossible. Natalie turned away, unable to meet his intense gaze. The money from that sale had lasted exactly 4 months. Then her father's investment firm collapsed under the weight of bad decisions and worse luck. Overnight, the Ashford family went from wealthy to drowning in debt. The mansion was foreclosed. The cars were repossessed. Her parents' retirement accounts evaporated like morning mist. Victoria had been 22 as well, studying marketing at an expensive private university. She had 2 semesters left when the money ran out. Catherine had suffered a nervous breakdown, unable to cope with losing the lifestyle she had built her identity around. Jonathan had retreated into himself, ashamed and broken. Natalie had been the one to step up. She withdrew from the advanced design program she had planned to enter. She took 3 jobs, morning shifts at the downtown library, afternoon hours at a boutique alterations shop, evening work as a freelance graphic designer. She paid for Victoria's final year of college. She covered their mother's therapy bills. She helped her father slowly rebuild his credibility in the business world. Her own dreams became luxuries she could not afford. The sketchbooks filled up with designs she would never create. The fabrics she collected sat and used in boxes under her bed. She told herself it was temporary, that once the family stabilized she would return to her passion. But temporary stretched into years, and years hardened into acceptance. I tried to find you, Cameron said quietly, breaking into her memories. After the exhibition, I wanted to commission more work, to offer you a partnership. But you had disappeared. Changed your phone number, moved from your apartment, stopped responding to the gallery's messages. My life fell apart. Natalie's words came out flat and emotionless. I had to make a choice between my dreams and my family's survival. It was not really a choice at all. The secret guardian. Cameron moved to stand beside her at the railing, both of them looking out at the glittering city. I know about your father's firm collapsing. I know about the debt and the foreclosure. I know you have worked yourself to exhaustion for a decade trying to keep your family afloat. Natalie felt anger flash through her shock. You have been watching me? Following me? Not following. Watching over. Cameron's voice was steady and unapologetic. I made sure your father got interviews at companies that could use his expertise. I arranged for your mother's therapist bills to be covered by an anonymous charitable fund. I bought pieces from the alterations shop where you worked, paying 10 times their value and instructing them to give you the commission. Natalie's mind reeled, sorting through memories and seeing them in new light. The job offers her father received from companies that usually would not look twice at someone with his history. The mysterious benefactor who paid her mother's medical expenses just when Catherine was about to give up treatment. The wealthy clients at the alterations shop who insisted only Natalie could work on their garments and tipped absurdly. You had no right, Natalie said, but her voice lacked conviction. You are correct. I had no right. Cameron turned to face her fully. But I could not stand by and watch someone with your talent and heart destroy herself for people who barely noticed she existed. Do you know your family has never once publicly acknowledged your sacrifice? Victoria tells people she put herself through college. Your parents tell friends they weathered their financial troubles through smart planning. The words hurt because they were true. Natalie had never asked for recognition, but she had hoped for it. Some small acknowledgement that she had given up everything to save them all. The confession. Why did you really expose Trevor tonight? Natalie asked, changing the subject because the current one was too painful. How did you even know what he was? Cameron's jaw tightened. 6 months ago, I was at a charity auction. I overheard your father talking about Victoria's engagement to Trevor Hastings. Something about the man's story did not sit right with me. The supposed real estate empire, the convenient family connections, it all felt too perfect. So I had him investigated. You investigated my sister's fiancé because of a feeling? I investigated him because I could not let another person hurt your family. Not when I had the resources to prevent it. Cameron's eyes met hers with burning intensity. The truth was worse than I imagined. Trevor has left a trail of victims across 3 states. Women he romanced, families he conned, businesses he destroyed. He was going to marry Victoria, gain access to whatever rebuilding your father has managed, and disappear with everything. I have seen his pattern enough times to know exactly how it ends. Natalie felt tears burning behind her eyes. Despite everything, despite a decade of being overlooked and undervalued, she could not wish that kind of harm on her family. Victoria could be self-centered and dismissive, but she did not deserve to be destroyed by a criminal. You saved her, Natalie said softly. You saved all of them. I did not do it for them. Cameron stepped closer, close enough that Natalie could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. I did it because I knew it would devastate you to watch your family be destroyed again. Because even after everything they have put you through, you still love them enough to care. The question that changed everything. Natalie looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time. She saw the sharp intelligence in his eyes, but also something vulnerable. Something that looked almost like loneliness. Here was a man who had built an empire, who commanded respect and wielded immense power, but who had spent 12 years quietly protecting a woman he barely knew. What do you want from me, Cameron Sterling? He smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face into something breathtaking. I want to offer you something I should have offered 12 years ago. A chance to reclaim your dreams. My company is launching a sustainable fashion division. We need a creative director who understands that beauty and purpose can coexist. Someone who can tell stories through fabric and design. Someone exactly like you. Natalie's breath caught. You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious about anything in my life. Full creative control, unlimited budget, a team of the best artisans and technicians in the industry. You would have everything you need to create the way you were meant to create. It was too much, too perfect, too impossible. Natalie shook her head. I cannot just leave my life behind. My job at the library, my family, everything I have built. The job at the library pays you barely above minimum wage. Your family takes your support for granted and gives nothing back. And what you have built, Natalie, is a cage. Cameron's voice was gentle but honest. You have built a prison and convinced yourself it is a home. The words hit like arrows, each one finding its mark. Natalie wanted to argue, to defend her choices, but she could not. Because he was right. She had sacrificed everything and received nothing in return except the hollow satisfaction of being useful. Think about it, Cameron said, pulling a business card from his pocket. Take all the time you need. But know that this offer has no expiration date. Whether you decide tomorrow or 10 years from now, the position will be waiting for you. Natalie took the card with trembling fingers. Heavy stock, elegant design, simple text, Cameron Sterling, founder and CEO, Sterling Industries. A phone number and email address. Nothing more. Before she could respond, the rooftop door burst open. Victoria stood there, her wedding dress torn at the hem, her makeup destroyed by tears and rage. Behind her, Catherine and Jonathan looked equally disheveled and furious. There you are. Victoria's voice was shrill with hysteria. This is all your fault. You and your billionaire friend ruined my wedding. How could you do this to me? Natalie stared at her twin sister, seeing clearly for perhaps the first time in her life. Victoria was not asking if she was okay, not wondering how she had ended up connected to Cameron Sterling, not considering anyone's feelings but her own. Even in her moment of humiliation and loss, Victoria could only think about how events affected her. Cameron moved to stand beside Natalie, his presence solid and protective. Your sister had nothing to do with my actions tonight. I made the choice to expose Trevor on my own, based on evidence of his criminal activities. If you are looking for someone to blame, blame the con artist who was about to destroy your life. But Victoria was not listening. She advanced on Natalie with fury in her eyes. You have always been jealous of me. Always wanting what I have. So you got your rich boyfriend to ruin my special day. That is enough. Jonathan's voice cut through Victoria's tirade. But he was not looking at Victoria. He was looking at Natalie with an expression that held calculation and sudden interest. Cameron Sterling. We should talk about what happened tonight. Perhaps we can come to some kind of arrangement that benefits everyone. Natalie felt sick. Her father was already trying to figure out how to profit from the situation, how to use Cameron's obvious connection to his forgotten daughter for his own advantage. Cameron's hand found Natalie's, his fingers warm and steady. The only arrangement that matters is the one Natalie chooses to make. With her own life, on her own terms. He looked down at her, and in his eyes she saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Not just professional opportunity, but something deeper. Something that had been growing for 12 years in the silence of his secret guardianship. Make yourself mine, he whispered, quiet enough that only she could hear. Not because you owe me. Not because I can give you a job or save your family. But because you deserve to be chosen, to be seen, to be valued for exactly who you are. Natalie's world tilted on its axis. The choice before her was impossibly clear and impossibly difficult. Stay in the shadows where she was safe but invisible, or step into the light and risk everything for a chance at the life she had always dreamed of living. She looked at her family, Victoria still raging, Catherine watching with cold assessment, Jonathan already planning his next move. None of them seeing her, even now. Especially now. Then she looked at Cameron, who had seen her 12 years ago and never looked away. The answer formed in her heart before her mind could catch up, the decision that broke everything open. Natalie's hand tightened around Cameron's, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip anchor her to this moment. Her family stood before her like judges waiting for a verdict, their faces twisted with various shades of anger and calculation. The rooftop terrace suddenly felt too small, the air too thick with expectation and years of buried resentment. I need to speak with Cameron alone, Natalie said, her voice surprisingly steady. Victoria laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Of course you do. You need to figure out how to manipulate him, how to use this situation to finally get attention. This is pathetic, even for you. Something inside Natalie cracked. Not broke, but cracked open like an egg revealing something stronger underneath. She released Cameron's hand and stepped toward her twin sister, meeting Victoria's eyes with a directness she had never allowed herself before. Do you know what is truly pathetic, Victoria? I have spent 10 years sacrificing everything so you could have your perfect life. I paid for your final year of college while I abandoned my own education. I worked 3 jobs so you could intern at fashion magazines without worrying about money. I covered rent and bills and expenses while you built your career and dated wealthy men. And not once, not a single time, have you ever said thank you. Victoria's face went pale, then flushed with anger. Nobody asked you to do any of that. You made those choices yourself. You are right. I did make those choices. And now I am making a different one. Natalie turned to her parents. I am done being invisible in this family. I am done being the one who gives everything and receives nothing. Starting tonight, you will have to figure out your own problems without me. Catherine's mouth opened in shock. Natalie Marie Ashford, you cannot be serious. After everything we have been through as a family, you would abandon us over some embarrassment at a wedding? This has nothing to do with the wedding. Natalie felt years of suppressed emotion rising like a tide. This is about me finally understanding that I matter. That my dreams and my life have value beyond what I can provide for other people. Jonathan moved forward, his expression shifting to the practiced charm he used in business negotiations. Sweetheart, I think you are upset and not thinking clearly. Let us all go home, get some rest, and discuss this tomorrow when emotions are not running so high. I have never been thinking more clearly in my entire life. Natalie looked at each of them in turn. I love you. All of you. But I cannot keep sacrificing myself on the altar of your expectations and indifference. I will not do it anymore. When the past demands its due. Cameron had remained silent during the exchange, but Natalie could feel his presence like a force field at her back. When she glanced at him, she saw approval and something deeper in his expression. Pride, maybe. Or recognition of courage he knew intimately. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she looked between Natalie and Cameron. How long has this been going on? How long have you two been sneaking around behind everyone's back? We have not been sneaking around at all, Cameron said evenly. I met your sister once, 12 years ago, for approximately 10 minutes. Everything since then has been my choice to watch over someone I believed deserved better than what life had given her. That is insane, Victoria spat. You are insane. People do not spend 12 years obsessing over someone they met for 10 minutes. People who have never experienced genuine connection would not understand. Cameron's words were cutting without raising his voice. I saw in Natalie something rare and valuable. The kind of authentic creativity and heart that most people spend their lives pretending to possess. I was not obsessed. I was aware. And I was waiting for the right moment to offer what I should have offered years ago. Catherine recovered her composure, smoothing her dress with practiced elegance. If you care about Natalie so much, then surely you understand the importance of family. We have been through difficult times, but we have stayed together. That means something. It means nothing if the staying together requires one person to erase themselves completely. Cameron's eyes were hard. I watched my own mother do that for my father and his family. She gave up her painting career, her dreams, her entire identity to be what they needed. By the time I was old enough to understand, there was nothing left of the woman she had been. She died when I was 19, and at her funeral, nobody could say who she really was beyond wife and mother. I swore I would never let someone I cared about disappear like that. The revelation hung in the air, adding new dimensions to everything Cameron had done. This was not just about Natalie. This was about a wound he carried, a loss that had shaped his understanding of sacrifice and value. Jonathan's expression shifted to calculation again. Perhaps we have been thoughtless. Families can lose sight of individual needs when facing collective challenges. If Natalie needs more recognition, more appreciation, we can certainly make changes. I do not want your appreciation anymore, Natalie said softly. I want my life back. The one I gave up to save all of you. The offer that demanded everything. Victoria made a sound of disgust. Fine. Run off with your billionaire stalker. See if we care. But do not come crying back when you realize he only wants you because you look like me. You have always been the discount version, Natalie. The practice run before the real thing. The words should have hurt. For years, similar comments from Victoria had carved pieces out of Natalie's self-worth. But tonight, standing on this rooftop with her future hanging in the balance, the words bounced off her like pebbles against armor. If that is what you truly believe, Victoria, then you understand nothing about value or authenticity. And I genuinely feel sorry for you. Catherine moved toward the door, her shoulders rigid with anger and wounded pride. Come, Jonathan. Victoria. Let us leave Natalie to her choices. She will learn soon enough that throwing away family for romantic fantasy never ends well. They left in a cloud of righteous indignation, Victoria casting one last venomous look over her shoulder. The rooftop door slammed shut, and suddenly Natalie and Cameron were alone with the Chicago night sky and the weight of everything that had just happened. Natalie's legs felt weak. She sank onto a nearby bench, her borrowed dress pooling around her like a deflated parachute. I just destroyed my family. No. Cameron sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. You just stopped letting them destroy you. There is a significant difference. They will never forgive me for this. Perhaps not. But forgiveness from people who never valued you in the first place has very little worth. Cameron's voice was gentle. I know this feels catastrophic right now. Like you have burned down your entire world. But sometimes destruction is necessary before rebuilding can begin. Natalie looked at him, really studied him in the soft lighting from the hotel below. He was handsome, certainly, but that was not what drew her. It was the intensity in his eyes, the sense that he saw her with a clarity nobody else had ever achieved. He knew her sacrifices, her dreams, the woman she had been before life demanded she become someone smaller. Why me? She asked, the question that had been circling her mind since he first spoke her name. You are Cameron Sterling. You could have anyone, support anyone, invest in any designer in the world. Why spend 12 years watching over someone you barely know? The truth behind 12 years. Cameron was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. When I was building my first company, I was ruthless. Brilliant, maybe, but ruthless. I stepped on people, cut corners, made decisions that helped me succeed but hurt others. I told myself it was necessary, that ambition required sacrifice. Then I sold that company for a fortune and realized I had built an empire on compromises I could not live with. He turned to face her fully. I was trying to figure out who I wanted to become when I walked into your exhibition that night. I was looking for something authentic in a world that felt increasingly fake. And there you were, this young designer talking about transformation and beauty emerging from pain. Your work was not just aesthetically beautiful. It was honest. It was real. You had poured your actual self into those pieces. I remember being terrified, Natalie admitted. My hands shook the entire night. I know. I could see it. But you did it anyway. That is courage. Cameron's smile was soft. I bought your collection because I wanted to support someone who created from a place of genuine emotion rather than calculated trend chasing. But then I tried to find you, to offer more support, and you had vanished. When I finally learned what happened to your family, what you had given up, I felt responsible somehow. Like I should have found you sooner, should have offered help before you sacrificed everything. That was not your responsibility. Maybe not. But watching over you became important to me. Making sure you did not completely disappear became a mission. Cameron reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through photos and then turned the screen toward her. Natalie gasped. The image showed a large room with tall windows and perfect lighting. On the walls and display stands were her 8 pieces from the Renaissance collection. They looked even more beautiful than she remembered, carefully lit and positioned to showcase every detail. But what made tears spring to her eyes was the care evident in their display. These were not possessions stored away in a vault. These were treasured works of art, honored and appreciated. I was not exaggerating when I said I see them every morning, Cameron said quietly. My home office overlooks this gallery. When I am making difficult decisions or feeling lost, I look at your work and remember what authentic creation looks like. What it means to pour your soul into something without reservation. The proposition that demanded an answer. Natalie handed the phone back with shaking hands. The job offer you mentioned. The creative director position. Is that real, or were you just trying to give me an escape route from my family? The position is absolutely real. Sterling Industries is launching a sustainable fashion division focused on creating luxury items from recycled and ethically sourced materials. We need a creative vision to guide the entire operation. Someone who understands that fashion can be both beautiful and responsible. Cameron pocketed his phone. But I will be honest with you about something important. The professional opportunity is genuine, but my interest in you is not purely professional. Natalie's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you saying? I am saying that I have spent 12 years learning about you from a distance. Your kindness, your resilience, your talent, your capacity to love people who do not deserve it. And everything I have learned has only deepened my certainty that you are someone extraordinary. Someone I want to know. Not as a boss to an employee, but as a man to a woman he finds remarkable. Cameron shifted closer, close enough that Natalie could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. So I am offering you two separate things. First, the job, which is real and available regardless of anything else. You would report to the division president, not to me. Your decisions would be your own. Your success would be earned through your talent, not given because of any personal connection between us. And the second thing? Natalie's voice came out barely above a whisper. The second thing is permission to pursue you. To take you to dinner, to show you the life you deserve, to discover if this connection I feel has any chance of being mutual. Cameron's hand moved to cover hers on the bench between them. I am not asking you to love me. I am asking for the chance to earn your affection honestly. To court you the way you should have been courted years ago. Natalie felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind her was the life she knew, painful and small but familiar. Before her was an abyss of possibility, terrifying in its vastness. This is too much. Too fast. This morning I woke up invisible and alone. Tonight my sister's wedding exploded, my family disowned me, and a billionaire I did not know existed is offering me everything I ever wanted. I know it is overwhelming. Cameron squeezed her hand gently. Take time. Think about what you want, separate from what I am offering. Do you want to keep living the life you have been living? Working jobs that do not fulfill you, supporting people who do not appreciate you, abandoning your dreams to serve others' needs? No, Natalie admitted, the word escaping before she could stop it. I do not want that life anymore. I am so tired of being invisible. So tired of being less than. So tired of watching everyone else live while I just survive. Then stop watching and start living. Cameron stood, pulling her gently to her feet. I have a car waiting downstairs. Let me take you home, wherever home is. Sleep on everything that happened tonight. Tomorrow, or next week, or whenever you are ready, call me. We will discuss the job offer in detail with lawyers present so you know everything is legitimate. And if you decide you want to explore something personal between us, we will take that as slowly as you need. The choice that defined her future. Natalie looked down at their joined hands. His was larger, warmer, steady in a way that made her feel anchored rather than controlled. She thought about her tiny apartment with its boxes of unused fabric and abandoned dreams. She thought about going back to the library tomorrow, stamping books and pretending she was content. She thought about watching Victoria eventually recover from this scandal and find another wealthy man while Natalie remained invisible in the background. Then she thought about the Renaissance collection displayed in Cameron's gallery like the precious art it was. She thought about someone spending 12 years quietly protecting her, believing she mattered when nobody else did. She thought about the possibility of creating again, of pouring her soul into fabric and design without worrying about rent or bills or other people's needs. I want the job, Natalie said, her voice growing stronger with each word. I want to create again. I want to stop being invisible. I want to matter. Cameron's smile was brilliant. You have always mattered. The world was just too blind to see it. And the other thing. The personal thing. Natalie took a deep breath. I cannot promise I will fall in love with you. I do not know you well enough yet. But I am willing to try. I am willing to see if this feeling, this sense of being truly seen for the first time in my life, is real or just desperation talking. That is all I am asking for. A chance. Cameron raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. A chance to prove that you deserve everything you have been denied. A chance to show you that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. They stood together on the rooftop as Chicago glittered below them, two people who had been orbiting each other for 12 years finally falling into the same gravity. Natalie knew tomorrow would bring challenges. Her family would retaliate. Society would gossip. She would have to learn to navigate a world she had only observed from the outside. But tonight, for the first time in a decade, Natalie Ashford felt alive. Felt possible. Felt like the woman she had always been meant to become. Cameron's whisper still echoed in her mind, "Make yourself mine." Not as possession but as partnership. Not as surrender but as claiming what she deserved. And Natalie Ashford, the forgotten twin, the invisible sister, the sacrificed daughter, whispered back into the Chicago night, "Yes." The word hung between them like a promise, like a vow, like the beginning of a story that had been waiting 12 years to be told. Far below, the remnants of Victoria's destroyed wedding were being cleared away. But up here, under the stars and city lights, something new was being born. Something that would transform not just Natalie's life but everything she touched. The future stretched before her, uncertain and terrifying and absolutely hers to claim. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Natalie Ashford could not wait to see what tomorrow would bring. The end.